name is Chase Williams, owner of Chase's Landscape Services. Today on our job site, we're going to show you how to install a potting planter feature in the landscape using with micro irrigation. So first we're going to do, I like to pre-made my drip line here, which this is your simple micro irrigation line that you can use. It's a cheaper way than installing a full irrigation system. We use it a lot on most of our landscapes. What we do here, since we have an empty pot, I already cleaned out the owner's previous pot here. You can see how most pots have a drainage hole in there. We simply just run our feeder line through the pot, leave ourselves enough slack so that way when we fill it, we have enough room to position it around. Also, what we did here is we pre-trenched a trench for our feeder line to go to our main tubing, so that way when we hook it up, it doesn't get kinked and prevent flow of the water to the pot. So simply, we're going to position this pot where we want it, because with less weight in it, it's a little bit easier to work with, and we'll just set this aside for the time being. We'll make sure everything looks good. We can also adjust the level of the pot after we kind of get things set in. We can step back a little bit further and take a look. So now what I have here is our landscape mix that we use on all of our landscape jobs. We're going to go ahead, since this is a pot that doesn't have to be moved that often, we're going to go ahead and fill up the pot to the adequate height that we need for our hibiscus here that we're going to be putting in the pot with some annuals around it. And what you want to do is you always want to fill the pot up enough, not to the brink of the top, because we are going to be having annuals going here. We're also going to put some mulch in there to prevent any weeds and also keep moisture in. So it takes a few scoops here. That should do it. Now what I usually like to do is I like to come into the pot here and just make myself a little bit of hole where my main plant's going to go, which is the hibiscus plant here. We want to make sure we don't have our feeder line in sight, but the roots will just grow around that. It'll be a little bit easier. Now what we do here, we can take our center accent piece right here, which is our hibiscus, which you can see how that's a little bit too low. We don't really want it that low, so we're going to need to go a little bit higher. You always want to test and see where the plant sits, so that way you don't go back and have to take it out and redo it after you got the whole thing done. So we just want to put in a little bit more soil, since this is a bigger pot. Get a few more scoops in here. And once again, we're going to come back in here. We're going to pack the edges back, give us our soil for the annuals and everything. Create our little center hole. Want to try and be as centered as possible, since this is the center plant going in. We'll drop it in. We'll take a step back. Maybe face the pretty side out. Take a look at it. You can kind of see it's a little bit cockeyed, but we'll be able to straighten that up as we get our dirt centered around it, be able to stabilize that plant. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add a little bit more soil, so that way we can put in our vinca here, which is going to drape around the plant to give us a little bit more splash of color. So simply go back to your wheelbarrow or potting mix, whichever you're using. We can come in here and just simply fill around that hibiscus to make sure, since this is a perennial, this will come back next year, even if we do have a light freeze, as long as it's covered for any back-to-back freezes. This will be extremely well, since we do get full afternoon sun here. We're in the shade right now, but in the afternoon this guy's gonna love it. So since we have our dirt now leveled, still above the rim of the top with some room to still put mulch, this is a good time to take our micro line here with drip emitter heads. So this is going to produce a little bit less water than what comes out of our heads that are in the landscape. I like to position them around the plant, each side. I usually do two, so that way water gets to both sides of the planter. Now with that gently being set in there, we're going to come in here. We'll simply position our annuals just to get an idea of where we're going to want them. So that way we have a good idea of where they're going to go. And with the size of them, we just want to make sure that we get them around the plant. You can see there, we're able to have good coverage, and these guys are going to grow really nice once they get some water and a little bit more heat on them. So since we kind of see that looks kind of good, we're going to go ahead and take them out the pot now. And just simply, since all this is new, fresh soil, we'll be able to loosen it up by hand here. And don't be afraid to push it down and get it in there. And then simply just decorate it accordingly to where it kind of fills the void it's in. We'll come over here and do this to the other two. Once again, just being aware of the micro line. We made it with enough slack so that way it's flexible for us to move around if it is in our way. We just want to make sure these annuals kind of fill in the holes. That way it's nice and pretty. One over here. This other side. So now we have our flower place, just picking off some of the dead buds or old buds on the hibiscus, so that way they can produce new ones, making it look pretty. So that way when our client gets home today, she'll see the nice new buds and the color of the flowers. Now we can go ahead and make sure the planter is where we want. Since this is a planter just in a freestanding bed, we always like to step back, take a look at it. You can see how the flowers are draping over a little bit more growth. This will fill out. Now we just want to come down here at the bottom, smooth out, because we are going to have annuals later on. You'll see in the finished product we'll have this mulched up with our additional color down here for the entryway. That way when people walk up the curb appeal, they get a blast of color. And we'll go ahead and take your mulch here, which we're using cypress mulch. We use this among crushed pine needle on our jobs, just depending on our client's preference. We're going to go ahead and just lightly take a few bits of mulch here, put it around the pot. This is just going to help keep moisture in, keep the plants nice and moist from drying out since this pot is raised. Also, it's going to help us keep our weeds down and just keep everything nice and pretty. It is a little bit messy whenever you do this part, but in the end, you simply gotta wipe it off and good. Just find yourself a little hole, usually in between the plants. We got our micro line run. All we got to do is hook it up to our main line back here. Once we finish doing the micro system, we'll then be able to finish our mulching around here, plant our additional annuals, and you'll be able to see the finished product. And cut!